Zanzibar is exploding as one of the top destinations on the African continent. Just this July, the island hit a record, almost 100,000 visitors in a single month. And if the trend continues, Zanzibar will soon cross the 1 million tourists per year frontier, a goal set for 2035. The government is already pouring millions into new roads and rebuilding old ones to keep up with the boom. But not everyone is impressed. Some foreigners who live on the island or visit regularly are actually upset. They say that Zanzibar is slowly but surely losing its spirit. Last year, some even complained after the government had rebuilt an old village road which had potholes so deep that my car learned how to dive during rainy season, and claimed that because of the new road, the village has lost its authenticity and charm. So let's ask the real question. Is this really about authenticity, or is it about exclusivity? Is it truly the island's spirit they are protecting, or just the fantasy of keeping this island as their private vibe? Because here's what I noticed. Whenever we talk about tourism growth in Zanzibar or anywhere in the global south, the word authenticity gets thrown around like a weapon. But what does authentic even mean in this context? Potholes and unreliable infrastructure? Empty beaches reserved for early visitors? Or is authenticity something deeper? Something rooted in Zanzibari culture and community? That's what this video is about. Today we are going to break down the tourism boom, the fears of so-called lost authenticity, and most importantly, who actually gets to define what Zanzibar spirit really is. I traveled to Zanzibar multiple times since 2008, imagine that's 17 years ago, and when I first visited Zanzibar, it was mostly honeymooners and high-end resorts. I was an intern in a 5-star luxury hotel, and without this internship, I could have never afforded to visit this beautiful island. Back then, it was really high-end, exclusive, empty. Just to give you an example, I was working in Michamvi and I waited almost 3 hours for a dala. These are the local minibuses to get to Paje. And in Paje, there was only one backpacker hostel. And yes, I caught that Robinson Crusoe vibe people talk about. Quiet beaches, untouched atmosphere. But here is the truth. My nostalgia, or anyone's nostalgia, doesn't get to dictate the island's future. And besides that, Zanzibar has always been a crossroads. African, Arab, Persian, and Indian influences, all blending into Swahili culture. So change and exchange are part of its DNA. So when we see the island now booming as a global destination, in my opinion, that's not the end of authenticity. It's just a new chapter of it. I have asked so many locals how they feel about the tourism boom, and trust me, without exception, people told me, Safi Sana, this is very good, because more tourists means more jobs, more business for them. And also, without exception, every single Zanzibari I asked was so happy about the new roads. The locals were so relieved about the new village road, finally a road without potholes. Cars aren't being destroyed anymore, and kids are getting to school easier and faster. That's not losing charm. That's dignity. That's safety. That's the standard that these foreigners who complained about the new village road demand at home. So why deny it here on the island of Zanzibar? So when foreigners romanticize broken roads as some sort of local charm, what they're really doing is equating local suffering with their personal adventure aesthetic. And let's be clear, Zanzibar's tourism industry contributes around a quarter of the economy and tens of thousands of jobs. For local families, that's not an abstract number. That's food on the table, school fees paid, and houses being built. Do we need safeguards and boundaries? Absolutely. Tourism must benefit locals through, for example, fair wages, local ownership, and conscious spending from visitors like us. So when visiting the island, choose Zanzibari-led tour agencies, Zanzibari-owned hotels and guest houses, restaurants, beach bars, you name it, because conscious spending keeps value circulating within the community. Besides that, respect for culture also matters. In fact, it matters a lot because Zanzibar is proudly Swahili, proudly Muslim. That means cover up in villages. Don't party loudly near mosques or get drunk in public, drink alcohol in public. What I've seen with my own eyes, I cannot even, it makes me speechless, honestly. And it makes me think, wouldn't it be better for the future, especially with the tourism boom, to create some sort of cultural respect guidelines? Maybe that could be a good solution to encourage appropriate behavior. Something like signs in villages. Don't walk around in miniskirts, cover your knees and your shoulders or whatever. And I also believe that hotel owners, guest house owners and tour operators should brief their guests and clients on what is appropriate and what not. I always do this with my Airbnb guests. I manage multiple properties on the island of Zanzibar, and before each check-in, the guests receive a welcome book and a guidebook in which I brief and educate them on the cultural guidelines, on how to dress in public, on appropriate behavior, on what is not appropriate, and things like how much they should tip waiters, security guards, or other locals working in the service sector. Last but not least, let's talk about the environmental risks that come with mass tourism. Waste, I'm telling you, waste is the silent crisis on the island, because more people means more waste, more plastic, sewage, and pressure on fragile ecosystems. The coral reefs, for example, they are under threat because of careless snorkeling, anchors, and chemical sunscreens. These are examples of the real challenges that come with the tourism boom. So the government must establish strict waste management systems, for instance, such as plastic bans and community recycling projects. Also, there is an increased need for awareness creation because, for example, so many tourists aren't even aware of the danger of chemical sunscreens for coral reefs. And so awareness creation could and should encourage visitors to use only reef-safe sunscreen. Plus, the government should also enforce zoning and conservation fees to protect marine reserves and mangroves. Certain areas and lagoons have these conservation fees already in place, however, not everywhere, and by far not enough. Like, for instance, just last month did the government introduce a conservation fee for the Blue Lagoon in the southeast coast, which is, I think, $10 per person. Now, let's get to the big question. Who gets to define authenticity? I personally feel that too often authenticity is defined through a Western gaze, romanticizing underdevelopment as if broken roads with potholes were somehow a culture to be preserved. But let's get to the uncomfortable question. When foreigners say the island is losing its spirit, its charm, its authenticity, what do they really mean? So authentic means crazy roads and empty beaches. And besides that, authentic for who? Those who arrived first and now want to keep the island frozen in their memory, untouched by change. And honestly, who gave anyone the authority to decide when the island has reached its limit? To say, I got to enjoy it, but now it's too crowded for the rest of you. Here is the brutally honest truth. Most people who are upset about the new village roads or who claim that too many tourists equal losing spirit are not even trying to protect the island's charm, culture, or authenticity. What they are protecting is their fantasy, the fantasy of exclusivity, of having an untouched paradise all to themselves. This is about privilege, nothing else. The privilege of saying, I knew Zanzibar before it was cool, and resenting the fact that more people now want to share in its beauty. And what they are basically doing is to weaponize the word authenticity to justify underdevelopment or to keep the island as their private vibe. And honestly, I can't even believe that this is a debate. I really thought it's common sense. But authenticity doesn't mean preserving broken infrastructure or hardship for someone else's adventure aesthetic. And also, poverty isn't charm. There's nothing charming about that. And spirit also isn't suffering. Zanzibar's spirit is its people. Authenticity belongs to Zanzibaris and Zanzibaris alone, not to outsiders projecting nostalgia. And if you actually listen to locals, they will tell you dignity, opportunity, and cultural pride are what keep the spirit alive. So no, mass tourism alone doesn't destroy a place's spirit. What actually destroys the spirit of a place is exploitation, disrespect, and keeping locals out of the benefits. So if you're dreaming of visiting the island of Zanzibar, welcome, karibu. Don't listen to these voices. Come like you're visiting family. Support local businesses, respect traditions, and immerse yourself in local Swahili culture. Because at the end of the day, and I cannot stress that enough, authenticity belongs to Zanzibaris, and the best way we honor that is by listening, by respecting, and making sure tourism strengthens their future, not just our nostalgia. Please drop your thoughts in the comments below and let me know what you think. Is it really authenticity, spirit, and charm that these foreigners are trying to protect, or, as I truly believe and I'm convinced of, exclusivity? And also let me know, how do you define authenticity when you travel? I hope you enjoyed this episode and I look forward to see you in the next video.